Looks good.
Yes, perfect. So I'm Flavia. I will give you a short introduction how to submit fair data to PANGAEA. So we've seen your challenges and difficulties, and I think lots of these points that you answered there we will already address. So I hope you already find some answers to your questions here. This was too fast. Yeah, I would like to start because most of the scientists wonder what data types can I submit to PANGAEA. We've already heard that in the introduction, but a little repetition doesn't hurt. So our focus in PANGAEA is on georeferenced, observational, and experimental data. We focus mostly on tabular data. Some examples you've already heard by Judith, but for example, environmental time series or sediment samples. But we also archive binary files such as images, movies, and netcdf files. And what is important is please don't submit model data to us, nucleotide sequence data like FASTA files or software code, because for these kind of data types, there are more specialized data repositories, at least for model data and nucleotide sequence data. So they're much better in archiving this kind of data. So we decided not to take this at PANGAEA anymore. But there's the possibility to link these data sets to, for example, to environmental data at PANGAEA via the references. So now I would like to show you another example of fair data at PANGAEA, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And this is another screenshot of our landing page. So this is the CTD data set from a Heinke cruise. And you can see that all data sets in PANGAEA have a full data set citation, which is important. So you can get credit for your data publication. And also it has a digital object identifier, DOI, and this provides a persistent link to the data set. You can see a map because we mostly have georeferenced data, or in most cases. And each data set is equipped with a rich set of metadata. So we have information about the abstract, a short summary about the data set. You can add keywords. We can link to different kinds of references, for example, related publications, paper publications, or other related data sets. We can link it to projects. And also you can see a coverage, which is automatically calculated in PANGAEA on the basis of the georeferences and the geocode. When you scroll down, further down, you can see that we have events. This is basically are the stations where you collected your data or your samples. And this is also needed to create the map at the top of the page. And here you can see that there are different stations here. I will talk a little bit later about it because we have also some standards there for research vessels. And you can see information like the coordinates, the date time, or the method that was used, so the device. Then it's followed by the parameter table. We have standardized parameters. Parameter names here. You can see the unit, the principal investigator, which of course there could be different PIs actually for different kinds of data. And you can also equip it with different methods, devices, and comments. So please remember this table because later I will show you a template which exactly refers to this information. Below the parameters, you can find the license. So we have an open access license here. And when you scroll further down, you have the data table. This is a typical example for tabular data. So you can download or you can open it in HTML view. I would like to point out that we have lots of cross-linking at PANGAEA. So that means we link the metadata and data to different services. For example, we have, for example, organism names, which are standardized and linked to the World Register of Marine Species, or we can add ORCID IDs, a unique identifier for each researcher, we can link projects, publications, or also samples if there's standardized sample IDs. And cross-linking means here that we do not only link to the services, but they can also harvest this information from us and use this, for example, for a data citation index. This is one example for that. This is another example for FAIR data at PANGAEA, which is reusable and findable in other portals. So this one is an example of harvesting by other services is the marine data portal, where you can find lots of data from the marine environment, in which this portal harvests different services, for example, PANGAEA. And I just want to show you one example. So you have a data search there. You can enter the Heinke Cruise label that from the data set I showed you before. And luckily, the second hit is already the data set from PANGAEA. So you can find it there, and you can also directly go there via the link. Also, one more important information is I showed you this full data set citation. So please make your citation count. Please cite this data set or correctly. And I want to show you one example. So basically, you saw this full citation is that you cited similar to paper publications. So you would include an in-text citation. For example, in this case would be Gomez-Letona et al. 2022. There are actually several data sets. That's why it's ABC. And you can include this in-text citation, for example, in the data availability statement, or also, for example, in the methods section, if this statement is not available. And additionally to that, you include a full reference in the reference list of your paper, together with the persistent link, the DOI. So this is also important. Please make sure that you always only refer to persistent links. So now I would like to move on to show you how you should specifically prepare the data and metadata for submission to PANGAEA. So when you start to prepare your data and metadata, please think about what did you measure, so which parameter and unit, who measured it, so who are the authors of your data set, who's the PI, and is there an article related to your data set? Of course, as we have georeference data, you would think about where did I measure it? So what is the latitude, longitude, the positions of the different samples? And also you could add a third dimension like depth in ice, water, sediment, and altitude. Also, when did you measure your data, like date, time, or age, for example, for sediment samples, and how did you measure it? So which devices and methods did you use? When you prepare your metadata, and this was actually also one of your questions in the poll before, is you think about who are the data authors. And these do not have to be exactly the same as the paper authors. It's possible, but it does not have to be, because data authors are all contributors to the collection and processing of the data, which means, for example, if there's a technical system who was not really involved in the writing of the manuscript, but he helped you taking the samples, he might be a candidate to be also a data author. Please provide titles and abstracts for each data set. And it's not the same as the paper abstract, because in the paper abstract, you would also describe the results and the interpretation, and this you do not do in the dataset abstract. You plainly describe the data, and we have also some guidelines there in our wiki pages. Please think about or provide paper citations and other references, also preliminary, as for example, manuscript and draft, because we can already link it to this data set and then update the citation later when the paper is published. And please include the DOI if available. Please also provide information on related projects and awards. And please include separate metadata tables. For example, if you have multiple data tables, you would need multiple abstracts and dataset titles. And actually, our submission form, you will see later, it's mainly made for one dataset. So you should, if you have multiple data tables, you need to provide it, for example, in a text file. This is one option. Please provide the campaign info and the event table, and also the parameter information, like the full names of the parameters, units, PIs, methods, and comments. And I will show you an example later how to do that. We have sometimes templates for that. This is one important information which maybe not everyone of you is aware of, as we actually routinely archive station lists of expeditions with the bigger German research vessels. You can find also on our website which research vessels. So if you have any measurements or samples from one of these cruises, please have a look on our website first, because it's quite likely that the campaigns and the events with all the related information, they've already been archived. And please make sure that you use the same event labels. And then also in this case, the event label is sufficient. You don't need to provide any other event or campaign information to us anymore. But if you have other campaigns or maybe research expeditions with other vessels, you have to give the information to us, because we will probably need to import it or have a look into our databases if it's already available. Regarding parameters, our users always wonder how that works. So we have a quite wide range of different data sets. And this is why we use a mix of relevant standard vocabularies. Like, for example, for species names, it would be the World Register of Marine Species and community standards. And the data curator will actually help you to find the right parameter in our system if you're not sure. You can find the complete parameter list. Here is a plain text file, so it might not be so easy to find the right parameter there. But maybe one good advice is, please check out the PANGAEA database. Maybe there's a similar data set and you can use similar parameter names, but don't worry about it too much, because the data editor, when you submitted your data, will help you to find the right parameter in our system. So what is important is, please provide the full parameter name and the unit. Regarding the data table, the preferred format for data tables is the tab delimited text files in UTF-8 encoding or Excel format. Please provide the position, the latitude, longitude in decimal degrees, and it must actually be provided for every sample, observation, and measurement carried out anywhere on Earth. Please also include a third dimension, for example, the water depth. The date time must be provided in ISO format and as coordinated universal time. This is particularly important, I would say, for biologists, because they usually provide the local time to us. So if you only have the local time, please also provide the time in UTC, because this is a mandatory information for us. For research cruises, usually the ship system already provides UTC information. Provide the parameters with the unit. Event and station ID should be the first column, and please explain all abbreviations, and you can find our full guidelines in our wiki pages. So I've already mentioned it. If you're looking for help, you're not sure what to do, we have lots of help pages. It's called our wiki. So if you have any other questions, might come up after the workshop. Maybe it would be an option to also have a look at our wiki, because you can find our full submission guidelines there, and also our templates for different generic ones, but also for different data types. So I want to show you one example here. We actually have templates for in Excel format, but also in text file-based files. So you can have a look there, what you prefer. I show you here now the example of the Excel template file, and you can see it has different tabs here. First, you have an info page with information about the submission. Then there would be an example or the template for the campaign information, the event table, the parameter table, and the data table. And now we'll show you some examples for that. So campaign and event information you need to provide if the events and campaigns are not in our system yet, or you're not sure about it. So regarding campaign information and events, all red parameters are mandatory. For campaigns, you need the label. It must be unique label. There could also be an option label. You have the begin and the end of the campaign, the basis, which would be the ship and for a ship expedition and the responsible scientist. And for events, you have a unique event label. You can provide the campaign name, the area, which is mandatory is the device. So what kind of sample did you take? Which device did you use? For example, a gravity corer or CTD. You have the date time of the event in ISO format and also the coordinates. And in case of a profile, for example, you could provide also the start and the end of the station or event. Here's an example for the parameter table. So this is what I showed you in the beginning on this data set. The data editor will add this information to the system. And this is actually especially important if you have really complex parameters and methods. It's much easier for the curator to enter this information in the system if you provide such a table. So you provide the parameter name, the unit, the principal investigator, which can also be different ones. And you have the method device and the comment. And just as a short information, for the method device, you should provide the primary instrument of measurement. And we have a certain syntax there. So you should write it as instrument type, comma, manufacturer, comma, model name. And if you're more interested in that, you can also have a look at the respective article in our wiki. So one last example for data table. So this is a nice example that can be easily imported to our system. So as the first column, you have the event label, you have the coordinates and decimal degree. You also have a third dimension of geocode or the depth water here. Then the date time in ISO format. And then it's followed by the data here, for example, conductivity. And you can see that the header is the full parameter name with the unit, which is important. So we can find the right parameters here. So this would be my last slide. So when you prepared the data and the metadata, you're ready for submission. To submit data to PANGAEA, you actually have to have an account with us and need to log in. And I just want to point out that please note that we have lots of submissions at the PANGAEA. So processing time might be up to several months, depending on the complexity of the data, of course. And also the availability of staff to process the data. So please make sure to submit your data as early as possible, because it's not that you submit and get a DOI directly, but this may take several weeks. So please make sure of that. And if you're worried because you have a manuscript in prep and you don't want to publish your data and open access right away, we can also have an access restriction or moratorium for up to 2 years. Okay, then I would say thank you.